Hey Heidi, how's it going?
Hello, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. How's life?
Uh-huh. Life is the same.
Nothing, nothing new, nothing different?
Yeah, gradually getting older.
Yeah, right. Every day we are one day older than the day before.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some people say today is the first day of the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's right. I already think so. Today is the
Yeah,
youngest day in my life, the rest of life.
yeah. That's awesome. No crazy weather systems in Japan today or this week?
Uh-huh. Yesterday, kind of judgment, um, what's it, in the court.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. A man died, or maybe 80 to 90 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of fortune. Then there are several children
Mm-hmm.
about to share the money, but all this son is much different from other families.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a DNA test. He's completely different from the family members.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he asked the hospital where the oldest son had been born. The other boy had been born in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They asked that guy, he's 10 years old. Can, can you mute him?
Yeah, there's some noise here. Gregory, what's going on, Gregory? Are you in the car? Oh, he is outside. Hey, Gregory, how's it going?
No. Are you hear me?
I do hear you. There's some noise in the back, though, Gregory.
Very strange. I sorry about that. I was muted myself,
Uh-huh.
and I was sure I muted. Something strange happened,
No
and now
problems.
I mute.
No problems,
Sorry,
Gregory.
sorry, sorry.
No problems, Gregory. Thank you. That's fine. Uh, so Heidi, you were saying this family, there were two sons, so the money was
Yeah.
being distributed among the family, right? Uh-huh.
Then they checked his DNA. He's the same the family.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. They are already past 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Uh,
So was the entire country following this, like
mm.
following this
The
case?
man, when he heard that matter, he cried a lot because when he was 2 years old, his father died. And after that, mother worked hard, but the family was very, very poor. He couldn't go to the high school nor university.
Mm-hmm.
So even his life was very tough. He didn't have any education.
Mm-hmm.
He is a truck driver now.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Then he indicted the hospital. Then yesterday, his judgment was to the hospital to pay the compensation to him.
Yeah, how much was that compensation?
Around $360,000.
Oh, wow. So that's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, but 60 years, so quite low, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's one of those
yeah, already 60 years passed.
60 years, yeah, so he
Mm.
lost a lot of his life, right?
Yeah, that's right. If he were the in the just with his family, he would have been graduated university like other family member did.
Yeah, I feel like $360,000 is actually too less for this guy. He should get more money. He
Mm-hmm.
should get maybe 360 million, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Very sad, right?
Yeah, it is definitely. If somebody's life is, spent doing something that they didn't deserve or they had a situation in their lives that was just unfair to them, right?
Yeah.
For example, there was a man in the United States who was actually convicted of a crime that
Mm-hmm.
he always said he was innocent, that
Mm-hmm.
he didn't do this crime, that they got, they caught the wrong person, they made him the scapegoat. We say in English the word scapegoat
Mm-hmm.
means
Yes.
if I blame something on somebody,
Mm-hmm.
he becomes a scapegoat. So he always said I was somebody's scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody, I did not do this action. Then with DNA evidence, they found out that he was actually innocent, but he had already spent 25 years in jail.
Oh.
Tragedy, absolute tragedy, you know? I
Mm.
mean, he will never be able to get those years back.
Yes.
You know, that's the biggest tragedy of the entire situation. But, you know, he is an inspiration now to so many people, you know, people who believe in the power of forgiveness, I think, because he did not do anything to the police, right? The same police officers who had arrested him 30 years before and who had, you know, given him such a hard time, he didn't say anything bad about them. He just, you know, he said my technology, maybe the technology was not there, but you know, he lost the time. He lost his life in that, you know. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. When people do something like that, they should be punished. I think the police should be punished because of that.
But his position, his situation was became clear, so he shouldn't insist that problem. He should looking forward.
Yeah, he should look forward. But I mean, I don't know. The police cannot do things like this and just get away with it. They can't say sorry. I would say put one of the police in jail for 25 years. You know, to see how it feels. I mean, sometimes you need to do things like that. If I was the judge and I could make my own decision, I would say, okay, the person who was most responsible for making him the scapegoat needs to go to jail for 25 years. That's it.
Very long.
Yeah, super long, ridiculous. So yeah, hey Gregory, how's it going? Good to see you again.
Hello. Unfortunately, I don't know what about you were spoken.
Yeah, we were talking just about people who are maybe accused of something or they have trouble with something in their life, and then it's found out later that they should have gotten a lot better treatment from, you know, from society or from their families. I think because sometimes, you know, people are convicted of wrong things or people end up in the wrong family, and you know, nobody knows what we can do to help the or I mean, you can't fix time that's already passed, right? So I guess we were talking about that, but it was just a normal conversation, Gregory, nothing specific. Yeah.
Okay, I still apologize. I now is disturb Heidi, but I mute myself and I try not to make noise. And some strange way, my cell phone I muted. I don't pay attention.
No problem, Gregory. That's fine. That's fine. But I mean, like, how are you otherwise? Are you taking a walk right now? Are you outside?
Yeah, sure. I'm taking a walk.
Nice, fantastic. Welcome to the class, as always, Gregory.
Thank you.
What we are going to be doing, guys, is I want to take a look and see, and with regards to today's class, we are actually going to be looking at the advanced prepositions 2 and 4, right? So when we use these prepositions, right, the reason behind using these prepositions is that, you know, when we have certain scenarios like when we have certain verbs, those verbs actually don't make sense unless they have prepositions with them. And in this case, we are focusing on 2 and 4. So some verbs, for example, let's say you have a verb, you know, I'm trying to think, let's see. For example, I want to do something, right? That is different from I want something, right? So if you were to say to somebody, I want ice cream, that's just a desire, right? You're not adding anything else to that, but you're saying that you desire ice cream, that you want ice cream, right? However, if you want to, see, once again, I'm saying the word to, right? It goes with want so much. If you desire to get ice cream, you know, then you have to say I want to get. So it has want, then this advanced preposition, to, and then another verb, right? So essentially, the meat of this lesson is that some of these advanced verbs require these advanced prepositions, and we are looking at to, and we're also looking at for. So, for example, we use the verbs to. We use the preposition to many times when we are talking about willing to do something, right? So, an interest in something. An interest is really the first main category. So, we can think about it in the sense of if you are interested in something, you can use verbs like willing, or you can also use a verb like refuse, right? I am willing to do something. I refuse to do something, right? And if you for these verbs, you can't say I am willing something, right? It won't work. You have to use willing plus to and then a verb, right? So these are the kinds of examples that we're looking at. If you don't want to do something, if you don't have an interest in something, then you can say I refuse to and then a verb, right? So I refuse to listen. I refuse to watch. I refuse to do, whatever the case is, right? So this is what we're looking at, guys, specifically looking at these two prepositions, to and for, and looking at the types of verbs that use these two prepositions, to and for, right? So any questions, guys, on what we're going to talk about in the class itself in terms of the grammar? I think it makes sense, Gregory and Heidi. I think it makes sense, right? Okay. Wow, Gregory, there's a lot of noise actually sometimes. Unfortunately, that's fine. So let me take some time here, guys. Now I'm just going to.
So I mute myself. I don't understand how it's happened.
No problems, Gregory. Thanks. So now I also want to just do a quick description, guys, of what we're talking about later today in the article, right? So in the article, we are actually looking at the complexity of the human body, right? Which I think for me is actually, for me personally, it's a very interesting topic because you look at the amazing amount of structures and bones and tendons and tissues and pieces and all these other parts that are inside the human body. And scientists are actually doing more and more research behind the human body to find out even more information, right? So we're going to be talking about that in the second part, and we will try to link as many of the verbs that use to and for in that conversation as well, right? So before I get started, just to get us thinking a little bit about these advanced verbs that we like to use, right? One thing, and since also we're talking about the human body, I wanted to ask you guys, tell us about one thing that you need to do, right? Need to, right? So this is another one of those verbs that uses to. Tell us about one thing that you need to do before you see the doctor, right? So before you go to your doctor's appointment, let's say you have to do something or you need to do something. What is one of those things that you have to do?
Maybe need a blood test.
Yeah, you maybe need to take a blood test, right? Before you go to before you go to the doctors, you might need to take a blood test, right? So need to or need to get a blood test. Blood test or need to take a blood test, right? Yeah, exactly. Either one of those will work, right? So what about Heidi? What about you? What will happen? What's another type of example?
I need to make appointment with the doctor.
I need to make an appointment with the doctor, right? So once again, need, and then the advanced preposition to, and then you're using the verb make, in this case. I need to make an appointment with the doctor, right? Looking at it in another sense, right? When we are using verbs like these advanced verbs with these advanced prepositions, the need to or the need for something, right? What do we use the verb, for example? What's another example of a verb this time that uses? Oh, okay. What's another example of a verb that we use when we are talking about, for example,
For example, I'm willing to.
Willing to works, right? Willing to definitely works. And also, I wanted to say another type of verb that will work is if we are saying. What about with for? What's a verb that we can use with for when we are talking about different kinds of...
I ask for.
You can ask for something, right? Definitely can ask for something. What's another kind of verb that you can use?
I'm looking for.
Looking for, right? You can look for something, you can ask for something, a need to do something, right? As well as, well, that was with to. So we say need to, refuse to, willing to. These are all examples. And then ask for, looking for. Yeah. So I just wanted to get an idea of what other verbs were available, right? Good, good. Let's take a little bit more advanced look, guys. So we looked at some of those initial verbs, right? With need, or with the advanced preposition to, so far we looked at willing and we looked at refuse, right? Both of those cover an interest, right? I am willing to do something versus I refuse to do something. When you refuse something, you don't have an interest, right? So what's a sentence, Gregory, that you can make using refuse and to?
I refuse to speak. No, I refuse to go to the shop just now. I'm busy.
Exactly. I refuse to go to the store right now, or to the shop right now. I am busy, right? Fantastic. What about Heidi? What's a verb that you can, what's a sentence that you can make using willing? Willing to. Heidi, are you there?
I'm sorry. I'm willing to meet you immediately.
Yeah, I'm willing to meet you immediately, right? So let's say somebody wants to have a meeting with you. You can tell them, I'm willing to meet you immediately, right? And then in another sense, we can also use, for example, so these verbs of interest, they use the advanced preposition to. We looked at willing and we looked at refuse. Some of the other verbs that use this same situation are verbs like want, like, prefer. You know, if you want to do something, if you like to do something, if you prefer to do something, right? These are all desires, right? I want to buy a new car. I like to eat ice cream after dinner. I prefer to wait until Monday to watch that movie, right? I prefer to wait until Monday to watch that movie. So these are all desires. These are all wishes that you have. Want, like, and prefer, right? And then for the opposite, if you don't desire something, the verb that we use is object, right? So if you object to something, then really the idea is that you don't want to do it, right? You don't have a desire to do it if you object to something. So let me just write these down real quick, guys. We have want, and then we have prefer, or want, like, and prefer, right? And we also have the verb object. So if you object to something, that means that you don't want to do it, right? You object to the case that was made by, let's say you take somebody to court and you make an objection. You object to what the judge says, right? You don't like what the judge says. You don't want to listen to what the judge says. You don't agree to what the judge says, right? So that's the negative. What's a sentence that you guys can give us with any of these verbs? So with want, or like, or prefer, or also with object. What's an example of a verb that you can give us?
I like speak with interesting people.
Yeah, fantastic, Gregory. I like to speak with interesting people, right? So once again, we're using like and we're using to, right? And Heidi, what about you? What's another example of a verb, of one of these verbs in a sentence using to?
I'm keen to eat ice cream.
Fantastic. Keen is another one, right? I am keen to eat ice cream, right? And keen is, what does keen mean actually, Heidi?
I want.
Yeah, keen is almost like an interest.
Yeah.
Right? It's almost like an interest. Like I am keen to learn. I am keen to study. Right? I have a desire, somewhat of a desire, but also an interest in doing something. Right? Once again, we can use to. And last but not least, guys, actually not last but not least, there are two other types. But when we make an intention to do something, right? When we intend to do something, when we plan to do something, when we are prepared to do something, right? All of these have the same idea, and the idea is that the intention is, for example, what you want to do, Really, it's another way of saying want, right? But you're establishing something that you want to do. So you're planning something. So I plan to, or I intend to, or I prepare to, right? What's the sentence with these words that we can think of? Plan, intend, prepare. What's an example?
I intend to invite my friend to the coffee shop.
Yeah, I intend to invite my friends to the coffee shop, right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, that was a nice bird, Gregory.
Okay.
Yeah.
I intend to speak fluently after 2 years
Yeah,
learning
fantastic.
English.
Fantastic. I intend to speak fluently in English after within the next 2 years, or after 2 years, I intend to speak English fluently, right? Same situation, guys. Last but not least, right, for these verbs that use intend, we can also focus on, I'm sorry, with these verbs that use to, we are also looking at verbs of obligation, right? So when it's an obligation on somebody to do something, that means that it's almost like a necessity, that they must do it, right? An obligation is the same as must, right? When we have those modals of permission or modals of ability, right? I must do something means there's no other option. Same thing with an obligation. So the verbs that we look at are have and need, right? I need to do something. There's no option. I have to do something. There's no option for both of those types of examples, right? So what's an example of a sentence with either have or need, Heidi?
Okay, I had to pay a property tax until the end of this month, so I did today.
Fantastic. I have to pay a property tax at the end of the month, and I did that today, right? So you decided to make that, and now that is your you fulfilled your obligation, right? You had an obligation and you fulfilled it, right? What about Gregory? What's another sentence that we can use if we want to use have or need?
I have picked up my daughter after her class.
Yeah, I have to pick up my daughter after her class, right? It's something that you have to do. There's no other option, right? So that, guys, is kind of a summary of the different ways that we use the verb, that we use the advanced preposition to, right? What about, do you guys have any questions before I move on to the advanced preposition for?
No.
No questions? Awesome, guys. So with for, we see another group of these specific types of verbs, right? And some of these verbs include, for example, verbs for feelings, right? And we use this a lot, actually, in English. We use these verbs for feelings a lot in English. So we can say, I am happy for somebody. I am sad for somebody, right? I am sorry for somebody, right? I am excited for somebody, right? So there are these many different ways that you can use these different types of, verbs using for, right? And especially when we're talking about emotions, right? So what's an example, guys, of a sentence that you can use with happy, sad, excited, or one of these other verbs like sorry, happy, sad, sorry, excited? How can we use one of those in an example? Heidi, what do you think?
I'm happy for
Or Gregory.
I'm happy for my daughter. She learn bicycle.
Fantastic. I am happy for my daughter because she learned how to ride a bicycle, right? So I'm happy for my daughter because she learned how to ride a bicycle, right? How old is your daughter again, Gregory?
It's maybe my mistake. No, not bicycle. She 7 years old. Just without motor. How cycle, not bicycle.
Yeah, bicycle also works without motor. It's also called a bicycle. It works. That's
Okay, bicycle.
it was correct. Yeah. So my daughter,
She is 7.
she's 7 years old. Wow, fantastic, right? So you are happy for your daughter. Heidi, what's another example of a sentence that we use with an emotion?
Okay. I'm excited for my friend because he passed Japanese exam.
What kind of exam is it?
Like TOEIC, Japanese.
So is it the
TOEIC
kind of
one.
the
Like
exam you have to pass
Japanese.
this?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Go ahead, Heidi.
Uh,
Sorry.
like TOEFL or TOEIC, but it's Japanese.
Is he from Japan? Is he?
He's Filipino.
Wow. So he learned Japanese.
Yeah. Sometimes I teach him Japanese.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So you're happy for your friend, or did you say excited or happy?
Excited.
Excited, I'm sorry. You're excited for your friend because he passed the Japanese version of the TOEFL exam,
Yeah.
right? Exactly, exactly. So sounds good, guys. So what's another type of verb that we can use, right? We can use, for example, if we have a purpose for an action, right? So let's say you have a purpose that you have some purpose behind what you're doing, right? You can be looking for something, right? So I'm looking for my cell phone, right? Because I think I lost it, right? So look is a verb. Also, we can use the verb pay, right? So you pay somebody for something, right? I am paying uh, my I'm paying him uh, for his chair. I don't know, you bought a chair from somebody. I am paying somebody for his chair. You can pay somebody for their time also, right? So if there's a time component, excuse me guys, I had an apple in my mouth. If there's a time component, then we can use that same idea, right? So paying for somebody for their time, for their service. You pay for a service, you pay for some time, right? If you're waiting for somebody, right? I am waiting for my friend here in the park, right? And you can also say things like cooking for somebody, right? Cooking for somebody. You are cooking for your family, right? You can prepare something for somebody also, right? I am preparing a meal for my mother, right? So all of these kinds of verbs that have a purpose behind the meaning, right? Looking for something, you're paying for something, there's a purpose. Waiting for somebody, cooking for somebody, preparing something for somebody. These are all examples that we can use, right? So what do you guys think about this? Can you guys give me an example of some sentences? So look, and pay, wait, cook. These are all examples of for, right? What's another example? Or I mean, what's another, yeah.
I'm waiting for a Skype call from my sister.
Ah, fantastic. I'm waiting for a Skype call from my sister, right? So, yeah, that works very well. You're waiting for somebody on Skype, let's say. And Gregory, what about you?
We all paying for our mistakes.
Fantastic. We are all paying for our mistakes, right? Fantastic. We pay for something. We can pay for time, for services. We can pay for our actions. We can pay for our mistakes, right? Fantastic. Very well done. And guys, last but not least, there are a ton of these verbs, right? We can also use these verbs we can use some verbs for description when we use the advanced preposition for, right? So somebody is famous for something. Somebody is popular for something, right? Both of these are types of verbs that we can use very easily with these two with the advanced preposition for, right? I am famous for my cooking, right? Maybe I'm a very famous chef. I'm a very famous dessert chef, whatever, you know. I'm very famous for my chocolate. I'm very famous for the cakes. He is very famous for his good looks, right? Maybe he's a very handsome guy. And then a word like popular, right? She is popular for her donation work or for her charity work, for her philanthropy. We say the word philanthropy when we are talking about charity work, right? So philanthropy, for example, Angelina Jolie is very famous for her philanthropy. She donates a lot of money and a lot of time to different causes, right? What about, can you guys give me a sentence with uh, famous or popular? What's another example that we can use?
Okay. Tom Cruise was popular for his performance in the movie Ghost Protocol.
Yeah, exactly. Tom Cruise was popular for his performance in the movie Ghost Protocol. Fantastic, fantastic. And Gregory, what about you? What's another way we can use famous or popular?
Albert Einstein was famous for his theory.
Absolutely. Albert Einstein was famous for his theory, or his theory of relativity, if you want to specify. But yeah, he was famous for his theory, right? He was famous for his science that he made, that he published, and that he taught, and that people learned from him, right? So, any questions, guys, about these two advanced prepositions? We looked at two, and now we looked at four. We made a bunch of sentences. Does it make sense how we use them in English?
Yeah. No.
It does inside you? Fantastic, fantastic. Awesome. And Gregory, it makes sense?
Yes, it's
Okay,
clear now.
great. So,
It was clear before, but it's clear now.
awesome, Gregory. Thank you. So, let's take a look, guys, at this article that we wanted to view, very quickly. And remember, once again, the focus is on the human body parts, right? So, when we look at the human body and we find out that there is so much complexity inside our bodies, right? So many bones and muscles and tendons and little structures, right? Scientists are still trying to figure out, right? So I'm pasting the article here, guys, but I want you guys to please ask me anytime you guys have any questions about anything. So I'm going to stop after maybe the first two paragraphs, or I'm going to stop after every two paragraphs, and I want you guys to ask me. Don't hesitate. Stop me if you see a word that you don't understand, or if you want to ask me about something that you don't understand. Don't hesitate, right? So let's take a look. What are we seeing here when it comes to the science of the human body, right? Let me take 1 second here. Okay. So how many human body parts remain undiscovered, right? In recent months, scientists have described a new layer in the cornea of the human eye, right? And a long overlooked ligament in the knee. So both of these things, right? Scientists had no idea that there's a layer in the human eye and that there was a ligament in the knee, right? What's a ligament, guys?
A small thing, it connects bones, two bones.
Yeah, exactly. A ligament connects bones to bones, right? And then the word tendon is a piece of tissue that connects a muscle to a bone, right? So tendon is muscle to bone, and ligament is bone to bone, right? So we have many ligaments and many tendons in many parts of the body, especially at joints. So our elbows, our shoulders, our knees, these places have a lot of these things, right? In our modern age of imaging and other advanced medical technologies, how is it possible that we still don't know everything there is to know about our anatomy, right? Despite a long history of fascination with the human body, experts say holes continue to exist in our knowledge because we are enormously complex creatures. What's more, there's a lot of variation from one person to the next. Reality is a far cry from the clear and colorful pictures in anatomy textbooks, right? So, what do you guys think about these two paragraphs? Any questions on the stuff so far here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Far cry.
Yeah, fantastic. So when they say reality, excuse me, Heidi. When they say reality is a far cry from something, right? What they're saying is reality is nothing like the clear and colorful pictures in anatomy textbooks, right? So they're very different from each other, right?
Okay.
Yeah. As medical students begin the reverent work of cadaver dissection, the complexities can be overwhelming, right? So what is a cadaver, guys?
Dead body.
Yeah, exactly.
It's body of dead man.
Exactly, right? Exactly. It's the body of a dead person, right? It can be a man or a woman. It could be anybody, right? And It's a very difficult thing for medical students when they are first beginning to learn about the body, because when they open up the body the very first time, when they do a dissection is when you open up a body, right? It can be very overwhelming, right? I did dissections when I was in university, and we had a body, and I did not know what I was going to do because this person used to be alive and it's a real body, and it was kind of scary at the beginning, right? Because you were thinking, I mean, I was thinking, you know, what do I do? How do I do stuff?
Yeah.
Do I cut it open? Do I hold the knife like this? Do I hold the knife like that?
The
But
medical pool, there is a big pool filled in the formalin. There are a lot of dead body in that pool.
yeah, they keep the bodies in freezers, and they try to maintain as many of them as possible,
Yeah.
for the students to learn from. Yeah. So there's a lot of complexity in that, right? When you first open up a body. Um, so it says here, when students open up the body for the first time, it's really hard, it's really confusing, says Daniel Schmidt, an evolutionary anthropologist and course director for human gross anatomy at Duke University, North Carolina. It's like getting up close to a pointillist painting where you just see dots, he says. It's like going to a new city, a new country, a new world. They just haven't anticipated what it's going to be like. It's beautiful, but the reaction of many students is, it's too hard, I can't do this, right? So many people are really surprised and taken aback when they open up a body for the first time. I was pretty surprised when I did it, so I can definitely understand what these kids think. What about, do you guys have any questions about these two paragraphs?
Yeah.
Or,
Anthropologist.
Anthropologist, yep, yep. Good question, Heidi. An anthropologist is somebody who studies people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not doctors, but they are, I mean, they can be PhDs. They're not medical doctors, but they are people who focus their studies on human society, the history of humans, in this case, evolutionary anthropology. So this person studies all about the evolution of humans, right? So that's what he does. And then what about, I actually don't know what the word pointillist means, guys. This was another word that I read in this article. I don't know what it means. I think it means maybe an artist who paints, with dots. So somebody who paints with dots is maybe, I think, called a pointillist, because I actually don't know what it means, but some kind of an artist, some form of an artist, right? Any other questions, guys, about what we see in these two paragraphs? Make sense? Okay. So then if we read on a little bit, it says, we're going to skip that next paragraph because it doesn't really make too much sense. But let's start with the but even when surgeons develop an intricate knowledge about specific parts of the body, they come to expect the unexpected, right? There's a muscle in the arm called the palmaris longus, for example, that is absent in about 15% of people. Some people have the muscle in one arm, but not the other, right? So there are differences in individuals because some of them have muscles that other people don't, right? So not all human beings are the same, right? There are minorities of people that have certain things, and surgeons routinely have to make decisions on the fly when they find that someone's veins or nerves take unexpected paths, right? Human variation is remarkable, Schmidt says. Everyone is different. So there's a ton of stuff that you can learn about human anatomy once you maybe, if you study medicine, of course. If you're a surgeon, then you have that kind of intricate knowledge behind things, right? So any questions about these two paragraphs, guys? These quick ones I read here.
Palmaris longus.
Yeah, palmaris longus is just the name of a muscle.
Mm.
It's just the name of a muscle that
What
exists. It's in the arm, actually. It's in the arm.
arm?
Yeah. Some people have it, some people don't,
Mm.
right? So about 15% of people don't have it, but other people have it. Yeah. So in that case, you have to, if you're a surgeon, You have to know, right? Like, oh my God, okay, I open up somebody and they don't have this muscle or they do have this muscle. They have to make decisions like that very quickly when they're doing surgery, right? And I'm just going to skip down here, guys, to the last section here called Lot to Learn, right? A lot to learn. As researchers continue to refine their studies of human anatomy, Schmidt says, they are bound to discover even more nuances, right? What do you guys think this word nuance means?
Small things, small parts of some subject.
Exactly.
Some subject.
Exactly, Gregory, exactly. So there are small parts to what the scientists are still trying to figure out, right? So there are little things, you know, they're with this palmaris longus muscle, right? Also with the idea of that we saw before, where we have this one muscle in our the two layers, or the one layer of the eye that we had no idea what it was, as well as there was a ligament in the knee, right? These are all little nuances, right? Where had no idea, but as we do more investigation, we find little things, right? So discoveries will come from both dissections, like the knee study, and from high-tech imaging, which turned up a previously unknown layer of the cornea earlier this year, right? So it's going to be a joint effort, right? We're going to see both dissections and high-tech imaging, right? Both of those things will be used for information about the body. What do you guys think this word imaging means, high-tech imaging?
I don't understand the word imaging.
Imaging,
Image?
yeah.
Maybe it's a very, very small part of body. So in our nature, I thought it's very difficult to find, but high technique of imaging means a kind of picture or some camera work, they could find that part. No?
Yeah, Heidi, exactly, exactly. Gregory, what were you going to say as well? I think you wanted to say something about imaging as well.
Oh, it's okay.
Yeah, so you guys are both on the right idea, right? Imaging is when we use X-rays, when we use CT scans, when we use, now there's all this different kind of software that allows us to learn about the body, right? So you can take a body, uh, you can take somebody's body and you can examine it using very advanced technological science that we didn't have before, right? Electron microscopes, for example, transmission electron microscopes also, right? TEMs and EMs, many, many, many different types of technology that we have that allow us to learn even more. And they're saying here that the brain and nervous system are perhaps the largest frontiers. These are probably the two most important, the two most unknown areas of the body, the brain and the nervous system, as scientists still have a lot to learn about where the nerves run and how the brain functions on a micro level. At a very small level, how does the brain function, right? That's where we're going to make discoveries in the next 50 years, says Schmidt, strongly and consistently. So that's the idea, guys, right? We have a ton of learning that we have to do, right? Doctors and anthropologists and all of these other folks are learning a lot about the body, and they are contributing that information to us, right? What did you guys think about the article? Does it sound surprising? Does it seem surprising to you guys that we still don't know everything about the body?
I know the subject is very complicated because my son was learn anatomy. It's very difficult subject, but I don't imagine it is so difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, anatomy was probably the hardest class I ever took. Out of all the classes I took in my life, I think one form of calculus was very hard, and anatomy was also extremely hard subject. I mean, some people are very, very good at just looking at something and memorizing different parts, right? Other people like me, I need to see something, I need to see how it falls with other things, what's next to it, what's above it, what's below it. Those kinds of things really help me, right? But other people, they just know instantly. So, yeah, it's absolutely right. Gregory, we do have a lot. Anatomy is very, very complicated. And Heidi, what about you? Did you find it surprising that we still don't know everything about the body?
Maybe there still we have a lot of part, unknown part, I think.
Yeah, and also, I mean, one of the interesting things about the science is that it's not just that we're looking at the big picture, right? When they are talking about the brain, for example, we still don't know, like the article said, we still don't know how it functions at a micro level.
Yeah, brain is very difficult, I think. Sometimes we can't control our feelings, so why?
Yeah, exactly, right? Why do we act the way we do? Why do we think the way we do? Why do we do anything the way we do, right? I think everything is controlled by the brain and the nervous system, and emotions and hormones and all of those kinds of things are controlled by the nervous system, right? So it is one of those kind of challenging areas in science because if we can understand the brain, I think we will have no problems understanding the rest of the human body.
Sometimes we have depression or bad feeling. It causes gastronomy or some other illness, right?
Yeah, yeah, it does, right? So even for things like eating, right? For things like eating, it's controlled by the brain. The levels of hormone are controlled by the brain. If there, some people they have their brain is suppresses certain things, so they suppress the hunger, for example. And these people don't need to eat as much as maybe normal people, right? There are drugs that actually they say they're weight loss drugs, but what they do is they simply alter the hormone in the brain that makes you hungry. So if you are no longer hungry, then you won't eat, and then you'll lose weight.
Many people want to control their appetite.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's a very popular way, but it can also be very dangerous,
Yeah.
right? Because instead of doing exercise and diet properly, these people are actually changing the way their brain behaves so that they don't eat as much, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's a little risky, I think, but I mean, have you guys ever studied anatomy, Heidi or Gregory? Have you guys ever opened up a body?
I know, but I opened the frog body when I was the elementary school student.
Oh wow, yeah. We did the same thing actually. We had to,
Oh, frog?
yeah, in English we say that we had to pit the frog, P-I-T-H, pit the frog, and when we do that, the frog's heart was still beating, right, Heidi?
Yes, 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 I remember. Yes.
It's kind of scary when you're a child, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. We needed to be separated into 4 or 5 groups. Every group had maybe 5 or 6 students. Then my group, no one wanted to cut the frog body, so I did.
Yeah, yeah. It's crazy. There's actually some people actually consider it to be very controversial what they do with those frogs when they pit the frogs because they think that it's actually very inhumane to the frog to do that. Some people are actually very against that idea, but other people are not. Other people think that it teaches, science. But yeah, anatomy is really extremely complicated. One of those subjects that you are either extremely good at or you develop an interest in and you get better at, but really it's not easy. It's a very difficult subject, right? And I mean, what do you think, Heidi, why is there a need to investigate more about what's in the human body? Is there really a need, or is it just pure fascination that people are doing? I mean, what's the reason, do you think? Why should we
Yeah,
care?
maybe they can find some illness, no resolution of illness
Hmm.
to investigate our body.
Yeah, right? But does it really matter, Heidi, though? Like, I mean, we know almost everything? Why do we need to know
Yes,
about the
yes,
the
I think so.
1%?
Mm. We don't know about that.
Yeah, yeah. And there could be, I think at the cell level, like I think you were saying, Heidi, too, at the cellular level, at the very small level,
Yeah.
for example, for cancer,
Hmm.
right? For example, there's no cure to cancer because I mean, it has so many possible reasons, right?
And
That's
many illness related to our gene, right?
Yeah, tons of diseases can be genetic, absolutely, can be
Yeah.
related to our genes, right? So there are many, many different possibilities
Hmm.
for disease control, right? And one of them could be studying more about the human body, right? I mean, have you heard, Heidi, of the word laparoscopic? Laparoscopic. This word, laparoscopic.
I know.
Laparoscopic means that when you are doing a non-invasive procedure in medicine, right? So what do you
Oh.
think? What do you think non-invasive means?
Mm. Invasive. Invasive. I don't know.
Oh, that's fine. Invasive is, for example, if somebody has a surgery in which they're cutting a large part, they're making a big hole in that person's
Mm.
body, right?
Mm.
Non-invasive is making a small hole,
Ah,
right?
yes, yes. Mm.
And using technology like a
Yeah,
camera, for example, a camera.
yeah, yeah. 3 or 4 holes. Then one hole
Exactly.
they put the camera.
Yeah, exactly,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And it's actually quite fascinating. It's
Mm-hmm.
very
Yeah.
fascinating that they're able to do stuff like this because
Mm-hmm.
generally you don't. You don't have the ability, right? I mean, uh, or until very recently you didn't have the ability to do that, right?
Um,
Because
Before they needed to cut quite long. After that, they needed to stay on the bed for long. But recently, so they can walk around just the next day, right?
yeah, yeah, that's a big reason for it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
before they would have to stay in the hospital for a week,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Quietly.
Yeah, and they'd have to recover, and it cost money
Mm-hmm.
to keep them, and it was blah blah blah. Now they can some surgeries they can actually come in the same day or
Mm-hmm.
leave the same day that they have the surgery. Only they have to
Recently,
rest for a few hours. Yeah.
Euro decided about the cosmetic companies, they
Mhm.
shouldn't have experiment using animals
Mhm.
to create new cosmetics. How do you think?
Yeah, I think it's very inhumane and it's incorrect to it's wrong to test on animals, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, animals can't control themselves, right? If
Mm.
we force them to do what we need them, what we want, and we are using them for something like science, it's very cruel.
Yeah, it means they should sell the new cosmetic without any experiment.
Hmm.
Experiment will be done by our skin.
Absolutely. Or we use scientific tests that
Mm.
maybe we make something like human skin and we test that,
Yeah.
right? It's possible now with things like tissue generation. You can
Mm-hmm.
definitely make things that are more that are that are using technology instead of using live subjects like a human
Mm-hmm.
or an
Yes.
animal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Heidi, I just wanted to ask you too, before the end of the class, if you had any questions about the article,
Mm.
specifically about the article. Did
No
you,
question.
are you sure?
Yeah, I understand very, very well.
And also about the verbs. So, for example, the verbs that use to and for, did you have any questions about how we use those kinds of verbs? We looked at desire, interest,
Mm.
willingness, for example, and then for we used purpose. So, I'm watching for. We used popularity, like I'm popular for, famous for, all those kinds of things. Did you have any questions about any of those?
No, I understood. So far,
Fan-
100%.
Fantastic. You get a gold star for today, then, Heidi. Awesome. Well, I'm just gonna head out then and prepare for my next class, which will start in 4 minutes, Heidi. So if
Yeah,
you're available, it'd be great to see you again.
yeah. Thank you very much.
Awesome, Heidi. Take care. Thank you
Goodbye.
so much.
Goodbye.
Yeah. Bye. Hey Heidi, how's it going?
Low, I think.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
He
it's one of those
Yeah, already 60 years passed.
60 years, yeah, so he lost a lot of his life, right?
Yeah, that's right. If he were in the just with his family, he would have been graduated university like other family member did.
Yeah. I feel like $360,000 is actually too less for this guy. He should get more money. He
Mm-hmm.
should get maybe 360 million, you know what I mean?
Yes, yes. Very sad, right?
Yeah, it is definitely. If somebody's life is, spent doing something that they didn't deserve or they had a situation in their lives that was just unfair to them, right?
Yeah.
For example, there was a man in the United States who was actually convicted of a crime that
Mm-hmm.
he always said he was innocent, that
Mm-hmm.
he didn't do this crime, that they got, they caught the wrong person, they made him the scapegoat. We say in English the word scapegoat means
Yes.
if I blame something on somebody,
Mm-hmm.
he becomes the scapegoat.
They checked his DNA. He's the same the family.
Mhm.
Mm. They are already past 60 years.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So was the entire country following this, like
Mm.
following this
The
case?
man, when he heard that matter, he cried a lot because when he was 2 years old, his father died. And after that, mother worked hard, but the family was very, very poor. He couldn't go to the high school nor university.
Mhm.
So even his life was very tough. He didn't have any education.
Mhm.
He is a truck driver now.
Mhm.
Mm. Then he indicted the hospital. Then yesterday, its judgment was to the hospital to pay the compensation to him.
Yeah, how much was that compensation?
Around $360,000.
Oh, wow. So that's a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, but 60 years. So quite.
Fun.
Hello, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. How's life?
Uh-huh. Life is the same.
Nothing new, nothing different?
Yeah, gradually getting older.
Yeah, right. Every day we are one day older than the day before.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's crazy. Some people say today is the first day of the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's right. I already think so. Today is the
Yeah,
youngest day in my rest of life.
yeah. That's awesome. No crazy weather systems in Japan today or this week?
Uh-huh. Yesterday, kind of judgment was in the court.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. A man died, or maybe 80 to 90 years old.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of fortune. Then there are several children
Mm-hmm.
about to share the money, but all this sign is much different from other families.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a DNA test. He's completely different from the family member.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then he asked the hospital where the oldest son had been born. The other boy had been born in the same time.
Mm-hmm.
They asked that guy, he's can, can you mute him?
Yeah, there's some noise here. Gregory, what's going on, Gregory? Are you in the car? Oh, he is outside. Hey, Gregory, how's it going?
No. Are you hear me?
I do hear you. There's some noise in the back, though, Gregory.
Very strange. Sorry about that. I was muted myself,
Uh-huh.
and I was sure I muted. Something strange happened,
No
and now
problems.
I muted.
No problems,
Sorry,
Gregory.
sorry, sorry.
No problems, Gregory. Thank you. That's fine. So Heidi, you were saying this family, there were two sons, so the money was
Yeah.
being distributed among the family, right? Uh-huh.
Then